We'll see. I would like to call to order this January 11th meeting of the Finance Committee. Ken, would you please lead us in prayer and to be followed by the pledge?
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for all the blessings that you bestowed upon us and the challenges that you've given us in Ascension Parish to continue to improve this parish and move forward. We thank you for all the new councilmen that have been elected and those that have returned. And we thank you for one mind, one heart, and one direction to again serve the people of this great parish. We thank you for the governor that was inaugurated today and all of those that were also elected. And we pray for your wisdom to be with them and guiding them and leading the state. Now we ask again, oh God, for your wisdom in doing the people's business tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, all members are present with the exception of Councilman Turner. There are no chair's additions, only one. Item 9D will not be heard tonight. There is also a public comment period. If you have anything that you want to address, then do so at the appropriate time. The allotted time is 3 minutes. I would like to welcome the new members of the council who are here tonight for the first time with the Finance Committee and our parish president. Thank you, sir. And we look forward to working with you and with each of you gentlemen who have joined us. The first item on the agenda, item number 5, Parish President's Contract Authority. O'Neill, would you give us the history behind this authority and what direction we might go at this point?
Okay. In the last meeting, y'all gave the parish president the authority to sign contracts that had been approved by the council. So he will not be able to sign any other contracts till after January 21st because that's the next council meeting. We have an ordinance regarding professional services where anything above $50,000 must go through to either the engineer review agency if it's an engineering service or non-engineering services for others, which go out for RFQ, and then they're brought to y'all, and y'all select who you want to go to. So that, based on that, there was authority for the parish president to sign contracts up to $50,000 without council approval. Although you would receive those reports every month in the finance packet. So right now, the question is, what do you want? How much authority do you want to give him without having to come to the council every time? The parish president asked me to look. There'd been a public records request that was made last year about contracts in that range. And we went back and looked at it. I think there were 15 or 16 contracts out of 130 that took place from January 1 of 2015 to January 16th of 2015, where they were signed without coming back to y'all. Of those, a lot of them were drainage. They were the ones that were above $25,000. He asked me to do that. Many of them were drainage and were sent to the parish president to be approved from the drainage board. There were like 10 hauling contracts, engineering services for that. There were really about 15 engineering type professional services, because some of the professional services that were approved that were between 25 and 50 were like our fire hydrant maintenance, our generator maintenance, those type of things that they're professional service because we're not buying a product, but they're yearly renewed on that service. So the idea is he's just asking, what do y'all want? How much do you want to give him the authority to sign without coming to the council? Because if he doesn't, then he's got to wait every time and come to y'all. If it's the finance, then we'll have contracts issued once a month.
Gentlemen, any questions? and observations that you might want to make as we make this decision?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
I would
Mr. Lambert.
like to go ahead and leave it with the agreement that we have now to,
Do you want to do that in the form of a motion, Mr. Lambert?
yes, ma'am, I would like to do that. And I think it's set at $50,000. And I don't think it's slowed any project down, and I think it's been working fine. So I haven't had any reports from finance, any issues with it, so I'm going to leave it as is.
I have a motion that we maintain this signing authorization at $50,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Mr. Dawson. Any questions? Mr. Lambert.
I guess, I've been on board 16 years now, and we started off at 10,000 when we originally started years ago. And we jumped tremendously from 10 to 50. And, I did catch quite a bit of heat from the public. A lot of contracts are signed at 49.9, I just thought we would go down a little bit, but that's just my thought on it. I'd like to hear what some of the other councilmen and new councilmen's idea, because a lot of projects of 49.9 is we came back, and we caught a lot of heat from the public with that, and I agree with them. I think it should. We are the governing body. It should come back to us, especially at 50,000. You had 16 of them. Okay, that's quite. It adds up quite a bit. That was not, agreed on by us. So something to think about.
Well, one of them, though, Todd, was a contract for legal services where they only get paid by the hour. All of them required, because we just have to have conflict attorneys. We have one, we needed a second one.
Gotcha.
So, I think it was Malcolm. I think Malcolm's handled one case.
Yeah.
So it's not like that's one, he's just authorized to go up to
Up to 50.
Up to 50.
Mm-hmm. Just a thought. I'd like to hear some of the other councilmen's
Mr. Dawson.
comments.
Well, we have one tonight. It's in the packet. That's 49,999. Even, and I seconded the motion, and I too agree that that's improper. If you work for a large corporation and you had a threshold at 50,000, and you start seeing contracts at 49,999, that would raise a huge red flag.
Exactly.
So I think that, myself, I would like to see us not err on the side to hurt the running of the railroad. And we can revisit this at any time, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And that, if we see that there are contracts going out at 49.9, or we see it's being abused, then we can always revisit this.
Councilman Sadler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I have appreciation for both Councilmen Lambert and Dawson's comments, and they're very similar to the feelings that I'm having. So I really just have a question, O'Neill, an informational question. And you may have said this. If so, I apologize, sir. Of these 100 and plus, whatever it was, 16 contracts, how many fell in the range of 25 to 50,000?
Specifically, Parish
in a
engineering type
year.
services were 15,000, like 15 of them. I think there were 15 or 16 of them. Most of them.
So if we do the math, excuse me for interrupting, 80 to 85% of the times it was below 25. The concern of the people.
Excuse me, no, because I don't want to. Because some of them were services were non-engineering type services. Like I said, the fire extinguishers, the generator maintenance. Those are service contracts, and that's what I wanted to. I guess those need to be done because they got to be done.
Right.
But they can come back to you. But those are the people that do the work.
Right.
So if you added those, that's probably. I think there were about another 15 of those. So it was about 30 contracts, including those. But those were more services. Like we don't have a choice when they want to update the software. If that's over $25,000, we can't say no. We're not going to update our software. We could, but.
Okay, but then my comment would be this: I still have identify a lot with the other two councilmen, so I don't want to see that to continue because I too have received some blowback about these contracts that come in at 49.9, whatever, even or 9.99, whatever. But I don't want to, as Bill Dawson just said, mess up the flow of business here either. That's not my intention. So I guess at this point, I'm willing to, we have a new president, to let that gentleman operate with the same level that the other gentleman did, and hope that we, as a council, don't see any more of these right to the limit type things, which would be convincing enough, I guess, for me, especially if that's a minority number of contracts. But Bill's absolutely right. I mean, we can ill afford to have the public see contracts right to the limit. It just doesn't pass the smell test.
What all we ask is direction from legalists. A lot of times when we draft those contracts, whatever y'all tell us, but we have up to,
Right.
because we can come back whatever you need. But how would you? Because up to is what we put in there. If a guy's going to bill about an hourly basis, and he's going to bill us $3,000, we still have a contract, so we can go back to him. That's a lot of times the contract says that.
I understand.
and
I
that's
guess
the
I'd be a lot
issue.
more comfortable if I knew what contract right now, and I don't.
Right.
I know at one time, I probably looked at that information, but didn't pay maybe the attention that I should have, and for how much it was and how close it was to make up my mind. Is there any really? There may be no game playing going on at all here. I don't know, but I know when it's always our job sitting up here. When someone
Madam
calls
Chair,
you and says, "Look, what's going on here?" and you know.
And y'all do receive a copy of the contracts every month.
That's correct.
You know, we just wanted to,
let's put
so that
in the
everybody
record.
knows that you do receive a copy.
Repeat that for the record.
Yes, every month, every contract becomes in the finance contract report. The other, like, there's one of them in there that we do the household chemicals when they
Right.
bring those in. We've always put the contract, whoever's going to dispose of them is paid for whatever they do. They don't have carte blanche to do. They've got to account to us, but the contract says, we've always put it up to, because if they brought in hazardous materials and it's going to cost, if we put 10,000 and it reached that point, we'd have to cut it off.
Right.
So
And the other thing I'd like to add on, since you put that on the table, that's part of the problem in doing our job, I think, at least me in doing my job, is that I see this maybe in this month, then I see something 3 months later, whatever. What I don't like is, and I have no evidence of this because it's a whole new administration, I don't want to see it continue, though, when I ask and say, look, I'd like to see all the contracts and then have any stonewalling whatsoever. Now, I realize that's redundant information, yes, that we did get piecemeal here, there, and everywhere, but just a summary. So perhaps it might even be wise, and it might placate everyone else, I know it would me, to just have a sort of a going summary and a report once in a while to this finance committee as to, what's going on in that regard when the contracts are. I don't want to see all these little minutia ones out of the 100, but let's say at somewhere between 25 or 50.
Well, I can tell you what my legal opinion has been to them, that unless it's a specific project, you can't get a bunch of 10s to exceed the 50, where we would do
Well, that was the other
RFQs.
thing,
And I
since
yes,
you put that on the table.
we have held that. That has been, and that's what we followed with. You can't, if you can have more than one contract for that, but it had to be for a specific project. And most of those, a lot of these projects came from drainage. And so you approve them in the drainage committee. They don't go through they're signed by the parish president because they're approved by the drainage board. They're put on the report, but it's not like they just came out of nowhere.
So to be certain, and so the public listening out there can understand as well, because I get that. Let company X, 25,000 later on, they get another one. When you add the two, it's still right below, but it's sort of if it were tricky, and I'm not saying it was, but the public's perception of it is, you're telling me that's not really happening either. The contracts are all mutually distinctive from one another, and they're not an additive to try to fall underneath that threshold and so forth.
Right. It's not like a general engineering consulting contract. No. If you're going to do, now, I'm not saying a company won't have more than one contract of 40 or 50, $45,000, because if they're doing 5 different projects, they may have had that.
Correct.
But we're not going to, but in that particular case, it has to be a scope of work, just like we do, and go through the finance like we do anything else. You can't, and if, in fact, I think in recreation, I'm just trying to answer the question. I'll stop if you want. In recreation, there were a bunch of contracts that were coming up like that, and we said, no, you can't do that. That's trying to circumvent
Yeah.
the RFP
Right.
project.
I'll yield to Councilman Kluwat before his arm falls off.
Yeah, and I'm gonna control this meeting and offer the parish president, who just indicated to me that he would like to comment, the opportunity to do so.
Just one thing. I think I hear what you're saying, and I think what we need to do is give you guys and lady a better perspective of what's going on. And if it's up to the 49,000, where we at to start now and why and all that stuff. We got to do a better job to get you the material that you need to see what we're doing with that money. You know, I hear that, and we will do a better job of that. And I mean, I looked at a bunch of the contracts that was up. In other words, they approved that they might have only needed 20-something thousand, and then but they did it to 49.9, so they can use them, you know, to the extent of 49.9. Now, in saying that, I think we need to let you guys know the whole deal on it.
Kenny, I appreciate your willingness to change things.
So you can know what's going on.
Thank you,
And
sir.
we will do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Randy? Hey,
Thank
I'm
you,
so,
Doc.
so sorry you had to wait.
With all due respect to Parish President Matassa, I mean, this subject was brought up based on the fact that we did start out, Tommy, Tommy started out with 10. We didn't start him out, but and then we ended up bringing it up to 50,000. I do know this, that the information was constantly given to us prior. And if there's any want with this board right now, in this council, to start out fresh and take a look at it, I don't have a problem making a substitute motion to reduce it to 25,000. And if we see, Madam Chairperson, if you are getting beat up at these meetings every month, you let us know, and we can take it back and bring it back up. I'll
So
put that in the form of a motion.
have a substitute motion to reduce the contract authority to 25,000 until further review. Have a motion and a second for that. Councilman Johnson seconded. Let's, Councilman Joseph.
On the substitute motion, if we do that, Mr. Parrington, then anything over 25,000, do we have to do a
It's going to have to wait.
RP?
No, not under the ordinance.
No.
It won't have to do that under the ordinance, just it can't be acted upon until the next finance committee meeting.
Okay, so I have a problem with if we have to do that, just wait for finance, then that lead time will really truly hurt us in any project. I would make it that the parish president would have the right to bring any contract over the $25,000 to $50,000 to the regular meeting or the finance meeting. Because, I mean, that if we're gonna try to save time, I would like to have him at least at one of those official meetings where all the full council is, have authority to sign it after it had been approved. So we won't have to wait 30 days. We'll be really shortening it down to a 2-week span, within a 2-week span that he can fulfill the contract.
My only comment to that would be that you realize, and I know you all do realize this, but for the public's knowledge, this is one less opportunity for the public to look at what we are doing.
I don't understand. We're going to the full council. All records are public records.
But you are going
And
to
we
the
are going to
finance
discuss that
committee
as a
first.
full council to at least let the,
You're bypassing finance. You're eliminating one opportunity for each of us to hear what is needed and for the public to hear it, and then for it to be discussed at the council. Councilman Lambert.
One quick thing about the meetings. You know, there's nothing saying that this finance and chairman of the finance can call a special meeting if we needed to get more, you know, for this contract. If it's pressing for time, I'm sure
It's done all the
Miss-
time.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we don't mind. I think all the council up here will be willing to come to a special meeting. If we need to move on something real quick, that is a time frame of getting this higher up, so,
And the chair would not be reluctant to call a special meeting.
yes, ma'am.
Councilman Lawler.
And this can be revisited in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time, whatever we need to. If we find that we need to move along because the projects are slowing, we can look at Councilman Thomas's idea. If not, we can revisit it and say, move it back up to 50.
And excuse me, newly elect,
I'm joking.
Lord,
Newly elected, was that necessary?
yeah. I have heard that name a couple of times, but, you know, recently,
He probably has.
I know Oliver is a lot of matching, a lot of names, but the last name is Joseph, O.J., Oliver, or Joseph. We accept any of those. All right, sir?
I will not call you Oliver Thomas again, I
All
promise.
right.
Thank you so much. All right, we have a motion and a second to reduce the signing authority for contracts to $25,000. Do I have any objections?
Roll call.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Kluwat,
Yes.
Councilman Lawler,
Yes.
Councilman Johnson,
Yes.
Councilman Joseph,
Yes.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert,
No.
Councilman Todd Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Cagnalotti,
Yes.
Councilman Satterley,
Yes.
Councilman Dawson,
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we do need a clarification.
Please.
When they're approved by East Ascension Drainage, do you want them to hold back on them or not? Because a lot of these contracts come from drainage.
No.
Okay. If
They've
they're
already
approved by
been
the
reviewed
drainage
by the-
board, the parish president's authorized to sign those. I just want to make sure, so when I draft a resolution, it's clear, because
What is the intent, gentlemen? Does someone have a comment they want to make on that? Randy?
Since I made the substitute motion, I would think that that's something that comes from East Ascension Drainage is
Right.
already approved by that governing body.
that's what I just wanted to make sure we clarified
been
that. I'll make
vetted,
sure that's in the
whatever
resolution,
it
because
takes.
otherwise somebody will question that when it comes through. Okay.
Thank you.
One other question. So on the 21st, I can sign contracts.
On the 21st, they'll authorize you to sign contracts that would have
25.
been approved and up to $25,000.
Gotcha.
Thank you
And
very much.
drainage contracts.
All right. Moving along to item number 6, the monthly contract reports.
Good evening. You have before you the contracts that were entered into in the month of December.
Gentlemen, does anyone have any questions regarding the monthly contract report?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Satterley.
Thank you. Number 2, Shoots Electric, reads replacement of damaged electrical fixtures at the governmental complex due to improper generator connection performed by others. Am I take it to understand that a contractor other than Shoots messed up and Shoots is coming to fix it? Are we gonna, if that's the case, try to get the 10 grand back, or what happened there?
Councilman, let me address that.
Thank you.
There is an issue and there is a demand made, so we will, but
Oh, okay.
there's a demand that's been made on that.
So we're demanding the other guys.
We just want to get it paid.
Oh, yeah, we need to have it
we-
fixed right away, so
we're gonna
I don't
fix
want
it
to,
and-
I don't want to slow it up, I just need the information. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Hearing no other questions or concerns, we'll move along to item number 7, the sales and use tax report. Ms. Gwynn.
Good evening, members of the council, President Matassa. You have before you a sales and use tax report. This report is prepared from documentation from our sales tax authority for the few new people. The Ascension Parish governments in our parish have a centralized taxing authority. They collect all the sales taxes for all the sales tax entities in the parish. It's governed by a board. You have a vote of a membership on the board, and that is myself. The agreement states that there would be no elected officials on that board, just the chief financial officers or any assistance from each entity. And they have to collect $1 million a year to be eligible for a voting membership. And right now on the board is represented by the Ascension Parish Council, and of course I represent all 3 taxing districts: East Ascension Drainage, 1 cent sales tax district, and the half-cent sales tax district. And then we have the sheriff. He has a half-cent sales tax, and then we have representations from 2 of the 3 cities. Sorrento doesn't qualify yet to have a voting membership. And then we have the West Ascension Hospital Service District. It makes up the board. This is our 3 taxing districts before you. The East Ascension Drainage has a half-cent sales tax. Our sales tax district number 1 has a 1 cent sales tax, and our sales tax district number 2 has a half-cent sales tax. And just to repeat for the benefit of the new people, our two East Ascension Drainage represents the entire east side of the parish, so the half-cent sales tax is effective on the entire east side of the parish. Our sales tax district number 1 is a rural sales tax district. It generally is, it was, I can't get out what I want to say. It was created with the verbiage that it includes the entire parish of Ascension outside the boundaries of the 3 municipalities as their boundaries presently existed. So if they annexing into our sales tax districts. If they incorporate a new city in the parish, it would be including our sales tax districts. And that goes on further to say when they do annexations, they can enter into an agreement that's negotiated between the parish council and the taxing district itself to share taxes in that district. If you look at East Ascension Drainage, what we're giving you includes audits, but it's comparing November, the current month of November, or the current taxing month to the prior taxing month, same month, and then also a year-to-date comparison between the 2 years. And then on the far right hand is a comparison to our budget. You can see East Ascension Drainage compared to our budget, and this is based on November collections, which represents October sales. We have 1 more taxing month in the year 2015 that we'll be reporting to, and like December sales are not due till January, so that's a 2016 tax. The one that we will report on in next month, which represents November sales, will be accrued back to year 2015. The budget for East Ascension Drainage was $13.8 million, and collections to date are $13.4 million, and they're at 97.22% of reaching their budget at 91.66% of the year. Sales tax district number 1 has a $24,559,000 budget, and they are through 11 months. They're at $22,770,000, which they're at 92.72%. And then our half-cent sales tax, their budget is $12.1 million. They have collected in 11 months $12,050,000. They're at 99.6% of the budget. The only difference between our 2 sales tax districts, one's a 1 and one's a half-cent, one's a 1 cent and one's a half-cent, is the difference between why one is above the other one is because the 1 cent sales tax has rebates on it from the chemical industry, and we're reporting net of rebates. Those rebates will be finished with CF Industries, and they have reported that they should be finished in the first half of this year. We already have the figures in for this last month of the year, and we will reach or be above each district's budget And if you look on page 2, now we're looking at only the 1-cent sales tax, just to use as an example to get some information across to you. We've got the collections divided into consumer, retail, motor vehicle, business to business, and petrochemical industry. And you can see the year-to-date compared to 14. Consumer retail thus far is up 9%, motor vehicles is up 6%, and business to business is down 16%, and petrochemical industry and their major suppliers are up 4.8%. This is not scientific. It was just grouping what we thought that you could get a good picture to see how it is. Just like I said, the petrochemical industry, what we do with the businesses is if a business's major customer is the petrochemical industry, they're thrown into that group. And business to business is, if it's not to say they don't do business with chemical industry, but if their major sales are not to them, they are located in that district. That column. And on the next page with the pie chart, again, we're using just the 1-cent sales tax to just try to give you a depiction of where your taxes are being collected. And you can see the petrochemical industry, 56% year-to-date, and consumer retail, 27%, motor vehicles, 11% of collections, and business-to-business, 6%. And the last page is a historical depiction of all 3 of our sales tax districts, and the first one is East Ascension Drainage. The yellow represents what we've collected through the beginning of the year for each year, and the red signifies the remainder of the year to be collected. And in the middle is our 1 cent, and then our half cent at the bottom. And you can easily see that the sales tax collections for 2015 will exceed or be level with 2014. We all know one of the biggest construction projects in our parish in the petrochemical industry is coming to an end. So we have positioned the 2016 budget to account for that drop in sales tax collections. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. And for the benefit of the new ones or any council member, the finance office is always willing and able for you to come in and for us to go over the sales taxes or any other revenue or expenditure of the parish.
Thank you, Ms. Gwen. Any questions? Mr. Bill Dawson.
Thank you, Gwen. I had just a couple of questions. One, if you look at you say net rebates on the industrial part, is that not correct? It's been escrowed, it hasn't been rebated. Is that correct?
No. Actually, we had 5 plants, BASF, CF, Methanex, Westlake, and Dynamic Fuels that requested these rebates, that we escrow them, and they've all withdrawn their requests with the exception of Dynamic Fuels, which was the first one. So we did rebate some money for them. The only one left that has not given us a letter saying that, generally the state rebates are more lucrative than this, so, and they can't take both, so they have been choosing the state.
What I'm trying to understand is, are these numbers, do they include the escrow amount that you have, for example, for CF?
No, it's not.
The escrow is not included in that.
No.
Is that correct?
Not for comparison purposes.
Okay. And just, anytime I get some numbers, I'm tempted to add them all up. So, when you add up and maybe that's the rebates, the difference, but when you add up all of the 1 cent sales tax and the middle chart, and then you add up these bar charts, it's about $2 million difference. So it's about 24.
That's about what they pay a month in rebates.
So that's the rebate.
Well, they pay $1 million.
Is that what that is?
The one that's left.
Okay. And in the title of this, it says January and November. Right. Should that be through November?
It should say through or
okay.
to. I'll get the sales tax authority to change
okay.
that.
And I have just a more of a general question. And when we talk about CF, what it brings to mind is that we accumulated about $4 million, if I'm not correct, in escrow from half of the 1 cent sales tax on their original equipping. And, this is a non-recurring sales tax that we have in the parish. And, I'm wondering if we've ever considered treating that as a non-recurring income so that it's identified and we don't use that for recurring expenses. Has there ever been any talk about that? I'm not talking about on just minor projects, but say on projects over $500 million where we have, a large amount of sales tax coming in and it looks like we have a lot of money to use for recurring, but then as you said, you didn't budget that for next year.
Right.
I was wondering if that had ever been identified, or is that possible that we could identify some of these large cash flows as non-recurring?
Well, naturally, we did it with the chemical plants that requested the rebates,
Right.
And that's identified. But the other issues is if we have a project we know we want to complete, then we do, try to secure some money that we're not going to spend in a normal budget year and let it fall into either the fund balance or, try to earmark it for this project that's coming up.
But there hasn't been any specific identification except for those that you escrow. Is that correct?
There has in the past, but we've already did the projects. No, there's none right now outstanding.
Okay.
I'm sure President Matassa may have some in mind, though, and maybe the council also.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll move along to item number 8, the Revenue and Expenditure Report. Ms. Amanda Burrow.
Good evening. Before you are the financial reports for the month of November 2015. On page 1, total revenues are at 88.88% at 91.66% of the year. The funds highlighted in green are funds that are under the budget by 5% or more. There are 8 operating funds and 3 capital funds that fall within that guideline, and on page 4 of the report, there's an explanation for those funds. On page 2, total expenditures are at 81.67% at 91.66% of the year. The funds highlighted in green are funds that are over the budget by 5% or more. There are 6 operating funds and 5 capital funds, and on page 5 of the report is an explanation for those funds. And the major reason for those are due to encumbrances on annual and quarterly and annual purchase orders and contracts that have been issued and obligated for the whole year. On page 3 are charts that compare both year-to-date revenue and expenditures for operating, which is the yellow bar, and capital, which is your blue bar, to the budget, which is the green bar. On the last page of the report is a list of all checks issued in November over 100,000, and the total of the checks are $2,706,214.03. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer at this time.
Questions, gentlemen? Bill, I want to mention to you that I think it was in our last meeting, we committed the infrastructure, we committed the CF money to infrastructure at the mega site. The council did that at the request of the parish president.
However, if you realize that's a half of the 1 cent. So there's another $4 million that is in some of these numbers. That's non-recurring.
Right. Good point. Any other questions on item number 8? Moving on to item number 9, to accept the lowest responsive bid, Ms. Jones-Sivers.
On December 3rd, 2015, the purchasing department received 1 bid for washed gravel. After review, the purchasing department and DPW recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid from South Louisiana Field Materials, and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Satterley. Second by Councilman Cagnolotti. Any questions? Mr. Dawson.
I'm sorry. Maybe in the second half. But, I just noticed that 3 out of 4 of these are 1 bids.
You got to do them separate.
Thank
And
you.
I'm just making a point that,
Usually my question.
that 3 out of 4 of these, you had one responsive bid. And the question, I just have a general question, I'm new to this, so you probably have the procedures in place, but I'm curious, and maybe we can wait till the end, as to how you assure competitiveness when you only have one bid. Do you have procedures in place when you receive one bid that goes and talks to the other bidders, et cetera, et cetera?
Bids are a formal process under Louisiana Revised Statute 38, and it clearly outlines how we seek bids. We normally notify every vendor in the area that we can. We send them emails, fax them over the bid notice. We also advertise in the Donaldsonville Chief, the Gonzales Weekly, Central Auction House, which is our online bidding page. You can actually bid online, and on our local ascensionparish.net. Materials oftentimes have one bidder, especially when transportation is involved. It becomes not very competitive if you're driving from Baton Rouge to deliver us washed gravel, or you have to come from Shreveport. It's kind of the way it is. And no, we can't go out to quote and then compare prices. The quote, the bid is the bid.
No, I understand that. And, you know, the question is that what happens when you only get one bid? It's not how you go about obtaining the bid. It's, you know, usually there's a procedure that says you go out and contact the other bidders, and you ask them why they didn't bid, and you look at the specification to see if it's too restrictive, and in some cases you have to convert that over to a single source, which has a different procedure altogether.
We followed a public bid law, Bill. This is not public-private industry. This is the public bid law. So we follow whatever the law says.
Whatever the lowest bid, and
That's it.
Well, you know, just me, coming from industry, if I saw 3 out of 4 bids came in and they had a single source, I would raise a big red flag.
government.
If you were in industry, but in government, the low bid wins.
And I think you can check this, but, you know, there are things that need to be done, usually at the federal level. There are things that are done when you only receive one bid, and those bids, and you have to assure competitiveness. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
And your point is taken, and Ms. Joan, if you want to make sure that that you look into the issue that concerns Mr. Dawson and address this with him and any other member of the council that has the same concern. All right, moving on to, we had a motion and a second. We had that question. Any objections to the item A, washed gravel bid? Hearing no objections, that motion passes. Item B, oil and grease.
On December 2nd, 2015, the Purchasing Department received 6 bids for oil and grease. After review, the Purchasing Department and Fleet Department recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid from Central Oil and Supply and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert.
Second that.
Second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Any questions? Councilman Satterley.
I believe, Madam Chairman, and I don't mean to correct, the second was by Mr. Lawler. You look a little bit distressed down there.
I'm sorry, Aaron, but Benny was sitting closer to me, so that's the voice I heard. I apologize. I might have to start appointing them.
I thought it was Mr. Thomas, Councilman Thomas.
Well, I see right now, boy, I'm gonna have to get me an attorney. I see I'm gonna have to get me an attorney.
All right, any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On December 3rd, 2015, the Purchasing Department received 1 bid for shaving screen cottonwood or white pine shavings. After review, the Purchasing Department and Lamar Dixon Expo Center recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid from SNS Forms and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
I have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert,
Second.
second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item 10.
Mr. Lambert? Oh, motion to adjourn. I was going to take over that.
I have a motion and a second.
to break.
This meeting is adjourned.